Good evening. My name is Prithwish Basu. Who is that? Okay, yeah. Today, I'll, today I'll be discussing with you this topic, Sanctified by Sri Ramakrishna. This is the part 2. We had some discussion last time. Before we start, we'll do our usual Tuesday chanting together. Tabo kathamritam tapto jibanam kobhibhiritam kalmoshapoham sravanamangalam srimadatam bhuvi grinanti te bhurida jana. Before I start the second part, let's have a little recap and preamble. Okay, let's fasten our seat belt, and we are going to have a tour of North Calcutta with Sri Ramakrishna. And so we are time traveling about 140 years back, around 1880. And
You're on the wrong way. Middle one.
yeah, this is the Dakshineshwar, and we talked about that this is the spiritual lab of spiritual science, like MIT. Is unprecedented in the history of mankind. Such lab existed, and where Sri Ramakrishna did unprecedented austerities and superhuman attainment in the spiritual world. Now, this is science of spirituality. This is science. Actually, Swami Vivekananda said spiritual science is more scientific than physical science, what we know of. Physical science deals with our five senses, and then extension of that with various kinds of very fine instruments. And because it is incomplete, it changes. You know, if you look at thousands of years or hundreds of years, it changes. For two millenniums, people thought that the atoms are indivisible. Then late 19th century, they came up saying, no, atoms have electrons, they are divisible. But later on, they came with electron, protons, and neutron. Now they said they are divisible. So there is no end, and people get entangled. They have value in it, of course. That's an intellectual value, there's a teaching. But as you can see, the physical science keeps on changing. Newtonian science, the Einsteinian science replace that. But the spiritual science doesn't change. It's more scientific than our physical science. That the knowledge revealed by God or whatever you want to call it, that is eternal. And Sri Ramakrishna practiced those spiritual sadhanas here. Basically, he followed all the traditions of Indian path, which has been described over the last 5,000 years. In his one life, he followed all the paths, 64 tantras, Advaita Vedanta, Bhakti, Shakti, everything he path followed, and he reached the pinnacle of that. And then he came back and did that, which any other sadhakas, even of the highest order, they could take many lives to attain that. So this is, in that way, this is unprecedented. And he didn't do it with a certain plan in mind. These are all spontaneous. Actually, Holy Mother said that there is no plan that I will do that, I will do that. No, these are all spontaneously came in his mind, and he followed that. And the corresponding gurus came, who helped. Also, they also got helped by Sri Ramakrishna in that path. Now, what is, I mean, then he actually, whatever he learned, whatever he realized, he actually went beyond what are given in the scriptures. Some people say that what his experiences are beyond given in the scriptures. And not only that, he followed the Indian tradition, he also followed Muslim traditions, and he had vision of Allah, then vision of Jesus. Sri Ramakrishna had Christian devotees. They used to regard him as Jesus. Everybody used to regard him as their ultimate teacher. Now, why he traveled to North Calcutta? Sri Ramakrishna went to various places for pilgrimages, but his visit to North Calcutta is a different one, because the frequency, from 1980 through 1985, he went there hundreds of times, 81 to 85. Huh? 1880, yeah, that's correct. 1880 to 1885, he went there hundreds of times. Basically, there is a story that three people, they are going by a field, and there's a huge wall, and they are hearing the laughters and merriment and mirth on the other side, but they cannot see what's happening. So one guy said, yeah, I'm going to climb the scale that, very tall wall and see what's happening. So he went up, and then he jumped on the other side, never came back. The second guy also did that. He went up with difficulty and then jumped on the other side, never came back, and he joined that merriment and joyousness. The third person went there. He said, wow, that's a different world. We have never experienced anything like that. I'm going to tell my friends and others so that they can come and enjoy it. So that is the avatara's role. They don't want to enjoy themselves, they want to tell others. So see, Ramakrishna, what he has experienced there over the 12 years of intense austerities and sadhanas, he wanted to tell others, to distribute others, so that it will perpetuate, it will help the mankind. And now, what do we mean by God realization? I mean, how we are going to get help by Sri Ramakrishna's teaching? Well, we get some inkling from Swami Vivekananda's words. There is one analogy, I don't know what Swami Vivekananda said that or someone said that. Our experience of the world is like a tip of the iceberg. What is beneath that, we don't see it. Just we see a tip, and we based on that knowledge, we walk around in this world. And that what's below that iceberg, that is our subconscious mind, and even beyond that superconscious mind, which the yogis, they discovered that. So they have the total reality, and most of the common people, we only see the tip of the iceberg, and then we walk around with that knowledge. Swami Vivekananda said this thing in a poetic way, that this universe, what we see, is the wreckage of the infinite on the shores of finite. So what you are seeing is basically a wreckage on the shores of finite. But there's an infinite world beyond it. That's what the spiritual science talks about, and that gives the fulfillment. And that's individually one reaches perfection, one expresses divinity through him. All our outlets are clogged right now. Although the divinity is inherent in everybody, but the outlets are all clogged. Remove that, and so that is what I understand by God realization. Basically understanding the reality, not the tip of the iceberg, but the entire thing as much as possible. You don't do it in one day, but as you go, spiritual science is more stable. What you learn today is not going to get obsolete tomorrow. Physical science can get obsolete. In my work, what we did 20, 30 years back, it was touted, patents and everything. Now these are all obsolete. Something better has come up. Spiritual science is not like that. Whatever we learn today, that's going to stay with us, not only in this life, but also in the next life. So that's the reason we are going to walk with Sri Ramakrishna's and see, get sanctified, get purified, learn something from him and those places. And also another thing, this is an individual improvement, individual growth, but also collectively there is a responsibility. When Vivekananda was traveling in Europe in late 1800s, late 19th centuries, he actually observed the underneath. Not many people observed it, he felt it, that Europe is on a powder keg, is going to explode. Lo and behold, that First World War, 1914, started. And I believe we are also on a powder keg now. So as a collectively, we have responsibility to follow this principle and preserve Earth, preserve our mutual destruction, but grow in the spiritual direction, not in the material direction. Material direction growth is coming because it's a selfish growth. Everybody wants to compete, everybody wants to grab others people, but the spiritual growth, one can grow without coming into conflict with anyone, but cooperating. So this is very important at this point, what Vivekananda saw. Our world is also going through that kind of phase right now, I feel. Also, Arnold Toynbee in 1960s, he used to come to Harvard University quite often. Our Swamiji, Swami Sarvagatananda ji, who was a predecessor to Swami Jogatmanji, he told us many times that he probably met Toynbee. And what Toynbee said is that Mahatma Gandhi's principle of non-violence and Sri Ramakrishna's testimony to the harmony of religions. Here we have he's a very famous historian. He has a books on history of mankind and he used to teach at the London school. Here we have the attitude and the spirit that can make it possible for the human race to grow together into a single family, and in the atomic age, this is the only alternative to destroying ourselves. So that's why we are studying it, and this is the source, that's where it came, and now we are ready to walk with Sri Ramakrishna, come to the North Calcutta. Of course, in those days, there was no North Calcutta or South Calcutta. There is Calcutta, native part, and then there's the European part, which is in the middle part of it, Park Street and all. So this was Calcutta, which is called North Calcutta today. And Sri Ramakrishna came to North Calcutta. His travel to North Calcutta is because of the third person. He saw things, amazing things there. He wanted to tell others. That was the plan. So he came to North Calcutta again and again over 1880 to 1885. He had these Mahasamadhis 1886. So for that 5 years, he came again and again. His main distribution center was Balaram Bose's house. I'm going to skip all these labs. This is our spiritual lab we talked about. Balaram Bose's house. That was his main parlor, main fort, main vineyard. He used to come and probably came more than 100 times over a period of 4 or 5 years, stayed overnight, and whenever he stayed, other devotees from the surrounding area, they come. Easier because Dakshineshwar was about 10 kilometers from Calcutta. Difficult to travel those days, horse carriage or by boat or by walking. So when Sri Ramakrishna used to come, people can visit him. So whole day devotional songs, discourses, you can read it in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Many such incidents have been recorded. They are in great details. So Balaram Bose's house is the main center. And last time I made an error in the date. Balaram Bose met Sri Ramakrishna on 1st January 1881. Yes. Balaram Bose met Sri Ramakrishna 1st January 1881 at Dakshineshwar, because he read about him in Keshav Chandra Sen's journal. And so he met him, and that's their lifelong bond started. And they're a very pious family. That house you can still visit, and many people have visited that. So that was our center point, Sri Ramakrishna center point, and is a center point of our tour also. We started from there. Every time we visit those places, we start, that's the nodal point, and from there we go. Within a 3-4 kilometers, many places which have been sanctified by Sri Ramakrishna are there. We are going to talk only a few of them, but the Balaram Bose's house is the main nodal center. He died in 1890, relatively young. In those days, people lived about 50 years. And this is the house on the left-hand side. That still there is a part of Ramakrishna Mission, is very well maintained. Many of you have gone there. So I'm going to skip. Next is the Chunilal Basu we talked about. His house is behind Balaram Bose's house. And Chunilal Basu first time met Sri Ramakrishna about a couple of months in March of 1881. And so Balaram Basu met on 1st of January. Chunilal Basu, he had a great yearning for God. He was not satisfied with his life, regular life. He had a job there. He's a financially challenged person, also didn't have much money, but he had a tremendous yearning for God. So he went and he heard about Sri Ramakrishna, went and visited in March of 1881. Second visit was about a month or month and a half, and that time Balaram Bose was there. And that was interesting. Balaram Bose comes from an aristocratic, rich family, zamindar, whereas Chunilal Bose, his neighbor, was not well off at all. So Sri Ramakrishna brought them together. So in that meeting, Sri Ramakrishna told Balaram that Chunilal lives close to your house. Why don't you bring him next time you come? So this is something, a lesson to learn. For a spiritual, elevated person, a person's social status, his money, his card is not at all important. The important is how much devotion they have. So they're in social status, they're very much different from a worldly standpoint, but from a spiritual teacher's standpoint, avatar standpoint, they are equal. So they brought them together, they became lifelong friends. Chunilal Basu lived for ripe old age, holding on to Sri Ramakrishna's instructions. We discussed that last time, so I'm skip that. These maps are a little smaller to see, so I'm not dwelling on that, but these are actually the Bagh Bazar area map. So we started from Balaram Bose's house and walked to Chunilal Basu's house, and then to Girish Ghosh, and then we are going towards the Pashupati. Now we spent some time in the Boshpara. We will skip that. Girish Chandra Ghosh, actually, Chaitananda ji has a whole book on that. There could be 2 lectures on Girish Chandra Ghosh. So we skipped that a little bit. He was a great dramatist, and he had a wayward life, drinking. And Kalipada Ghosh, which I'm going to talk about if we have time, he has a similar kind of life. They are like their close friend. Kalipada Ghosh was about 5 years junior to him, but they're close friends, used to drink together. So they are drinking buddies there. So we'll skip Girish Chandra Ghosh. His house, the left-hand side was original house, and today, what is left today. Then we moved to Boshpara Lane, Swami Nirmalananda. We talked about Vaikuntanath Sannal. This is Dinanath Basu's house on the left-hand side. That is 1877. Sri Ramakrishna went there, and Girish Chandra Ghosh had their first time saw Sri Ramakrishna there. Girish Chandra was not quite impressed with him that time. It took a while before he get hooked. And Swami Akhandananda Swami Turiyananda, I think, saw that time. He was 13 or 14 years old. So we discussed that, because their houses were close by. That is Akhandananda's house, which is not, the original house is not there, but at that house there's a new house. But if you stand there, if you know the stories, you will feel the palpable, some kind of feeling you will have that this is the place where Sri Ramakrishna came, he stood there. Then we went to Nanda and Pashupati Boshe's house, which is on Bagh Bazar Street. They are very, very rich people that time. They had some kind of business with the British, hugely rich. Their mansion is, that is the face of their facade of the mansion, is 270 feet long and over a 14 acres land. And so Sri Ramakrishna went to their house from Balaram Bose's house. That was 28 July 1885. 28 July 1885. And there is a long discourse on on that visit, on account of that visit in Gospel. And one can spend, Swamiji probably spent few days on that. So we are doing little bit of it. So Nandalal Bose and Pasupati Bose's house, Sri Ramakrishna went there to see the paintings of the god and goddesses, and done by a very famous artist that time. And one thing, it strikes me that when Sri Ramakrishna went to their house, they're very rich people. Again, there's a very high status in the society. And but Sri Ramakrishna, in divine fervor, said, "It's a huge mansion, but what does it consist of? Bricks, timbers, and clay." And he said to himself that somebody heard it and then recorded it. Actually, in the Gospel is there. But that is the divine vision. A spiritual person, to them, time, space, and causation, they collapse. The meaning of time, they collapse to some, whatever we read. I don't have experience of that. Swami Brahmananda ji used to say, everything looks like a painting. He never liked to come to meetings. The reality of the meetings and doing something is sometimes, when he's in a divine mood, he is all lost. So Sri Ramakrishna said that, and lo and behold, if you go there today, it is all bricks and timbers and clay, all dilapidated condition. It's the same thing what is 140 years back, what he said, that has reduced to this. But it was a historic house. So the second part I'm going to touch on today. So we talked about those pictures and all those things, but the second part is also interesting. Sri Ramakrishna was a great logician. If you read, if we read Gospel, and if we read it carefully, he's a great logician. When he used to discourse with people, he actually, in a secular education wise, he didn't go to school or anything. These are all intuitive knowledge he gathered through his spiritual practice. And a person of that stature, he knows the entire iceberg. We know the little tip. So even if these worldly people, they are intellectually super in that time, they are no match to Sri Ramakrishna if you look at the conversation. And Sri Ramakrishna never used, emotion or by force, or not by calling God. Yes, God said that, or holier than thou attitude. No, pure reason. And then he extended the reason into the spiritual domain and disarmed all these people. So there is, if you read that account, it's very interesting. Actually, Swami Chidakananda ji, to which I am grateful very much, because he wrote articles and I learned a lot. And he actually explained all those things. These are like Socratic method. Socratic method is basically is cooperative argumentation, meaning that through argumentation, question and answer, you learn something. It's not just debate, you just talk down others. No, not that. Cooperative argumentation, Socratic method is through inquiry, by question and answer, one learns. And the methods are this, the steps are this. First, listen and understand. Sri Ramakrishna will listen somebody's point intently and understand his point of view. And then reply by deductive reasoning with analogy to refute that and show the absurdity of his position. If it is so. If it is not so, then he will definitely praise it. And then, in any debate, there is a red herring fallacy, which is basically, when your debate is going on, if somebody is not comfortable, he will bring some irrelevant topic, try to deflect the debate in another direction, and Sri Ramakrishna will catch it. That is called red herring fallacy. He will bring it back to the point. He was very good. If you follow all this discussion, you will feel he has followed the Socratic method, not knowing that Socratic is his own method. And then finally, he goes beyond that. Of course, then another step, his presence of mind, composure, never raising voice, never getting upset. People actually insulted him right on the face. He never getting upset, peace, but he answered the question. Composer of mind. And lastly, which goes beyond Socratic method, is basically affirming the other person's good qualities. From knowing it, good spiritual qualities, and telling them, encouraging them, go ahead. So if you read the gospel, that Nandalal Basu's discussion with Sri Ramakrishna that day, you will follow that this kind of reasoning Sri Ramakrishna followed and disarmed them. I am not going to go about much of it, but two things I'm going to say. Here, that famous mango orchard, I think that this was said here. When the debate was going on between, not debate, some kind of discussion is going on between Nandalal Bose and Sri Ramakrishna on various things, basically divine grace and karma. Nandalal Bose was a rationalist, wealthy rationalist. They are rationalist, meaning that you use reason as the final arbiter of any truth. Use reason to go get into a truth. Nothing beyond that. So that's what the rationalist is. But Sri Ramakrishna went beyond that. So that's why they are no match in terms of the discussion. So he was talking about divine grace and karma. If you have karma, law of karma, divine grace cannot is contradictory. Karma, one has to suffer or according to the karma, one has to reap the benefits of suffering. But Sri Ramakrishna said that there is a divine grace by which you can mitigate then Nanda was not buying that. To him, the law of karma is the final. But then Sri Ramakrishna said something, and he finally understood. So that was the debate thing. You can read in there. But at one point, when the debate was going on, I'm going to say about the red herring fallacy. Pashupati Bose came, and he started talking about asking Sri Ramakrishna's opinion about popular religious movements, spiritualism and theosophy and Brahmo. So that's a red herring fallacy. There's some topic is going on. He's trying to deflect that on behalf of his brother. Sri Ramakrishna immediately brought him back to the point. He said, Sri Ramakrishna deftly deflects the red herring fallacy with an effective analogy, which quickly brings the focus back to the spiritual practice and God realization. He said, my dear sir, I do not know about these things. Why bother about them so much? You have come to an orchard to eat mangoes. Enjoy them. What is the use of your calculating how many mango trees are there, how many millions of branches, how many billions of leaves? I have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Let me enjoy them. So he didn't allow him to go into the tangent and then disturb the flow of the original discussion. So that was, you can read about that, about the logic thing. The last thing is that then, although they are very wealthy and all those things, they probably didn't know the etiquette, or when they invited a group, particularly a spiritual person, some food to be given. So no food was being given for some time. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, yeah, you see, you should offer me something. Otherwise, it will do harm to actually. He doesn't eat much. He probably will eat little. But if you should offer me something, otherwise it will bring harm to householder. And so they brought something, and they ate it, the devotees and Sri Ramakrishna. And the last part is very interesting. You see that anybody will actually break his composure. You'll see that one. Nandalal Bose brought a tray of betel leaves. And before it was offered to Sri Ramakrishna, it was offered to other people. So other people took it. And when it came to Sri Ramakrishna, he could not take it. And Nandalal got irritated. He confronts the master. he says it is not proper for Sri Ramakrishna to diffuse betel leaf on the plate without Sri Ramakrishna's, reaction. Without being perturbed, Sri Ramakrishna downplays the incident. And he says, before I eat anything, I offer it to the God. It is a notion of mine. Nando immediately counters. He is rationalist, of course. Nando immediately counters. But the betel leaf would have gone to God all the same. So he is talking like a Gyani. Everything is God. Why are you refusing betel leaf? Thakur replies, yes, that is the path of Jnana. But there is also path of Bhakti. According to Gyani, everything can be eaten by applying the knowledge of Brahman. But the followers of Bhakti keeps a little distance. So one cannot talk like a Gyani unless he is a Gyani. So Nandalal Basu is actually quoting from something which he has not realized. So Sri Ramakrishna, he did not confront him, but he disarmed him. Even then, Nando remains dissatisfied. He says, but I still maintain that you did not act rightly. Normally, any person, what to speak of incarnation, would take offense at such words. But Sri Ramakrishna did not possess the slightest trace of holier-than-thou attitude. He quickly diffuses the anger of Nanda by saying, it is just a notion of mine. What you say is also right. That too is supported by scriptures. And end of the discussion. So this is something, how to diffuse a discussion and not to get into the useless argumentation. It doesn't help anybody. So this is something we can learn, how to diffuse a surcharged emotional atmosphere. And he then went beyond the Socratic method. So you see these methods, all these followed. He went beyond that. Just before leaving, he said, though you are a householder, still you have kept your mind on God. Is that a small thing? He is actually telling his virtues. He is a wealthy man, but still he has mind on God. He has beautiful paintings of gods and goddesses. Then he says, according to Gita, a man who is honored and respected by many people possesses a special power of God. Vibhuti yoga, vibhutis, whoever has special power, wealth, at least the God's grace is there, so we should honor them. Here you have divine power, unquote. Here Sri Ramakrishna sets an ideal before sannyasi on how to interact with others. First be a gentleman, then be a spiritual teacher. Wonderful this logic and discussion. Same thing you remember that Shivnath Shastri, who was a well-known Brahmo preacher, Sri Ramakrishna used to love him very much, but Shivnath Shastri had a wrong understanding. Shivnath Shastri used to like Sri Ramakrishna. He knew that he was a pious person, but he had a little bit of wrong understanding about him. And he used to keep a distance because of two reasons. One thing is, as a wrong understanding, he thought Sri Ramakrishna is somewhat mad. His God intoxication is his unbalanced mind. And secondly, because Sri Ramakrishna used to attract Brahmo devotees like Keshav Chandra Sen. It was after Keshav Chandra Sen. I think Keshav Chandra Sen probably passed away that time. He didn't like that. He didn't want the Brahmo devotees to come to Sri Ramakrishna and pick up those ideas. So he used to tell people that Sri Ramakrishna was mad. He's unconscious. So one day Sri Ramakrishna found Shivnath, but Sri Ramakrishna loved Shivnath Shastri very much, in spite of that. But one day, see the logic. One day he found Shivnath Shastri, maybe came there. He asked him, you talk to the other people about my madness, but how can one become unconscious by thinking about consciousness? One does not lose consciousness by thinking about Him, capital Him, who is all spirit and all consciousness. See, wonderful logic. You cannot refute that. This is beyond rational logic. God or consciousness, conscious principle and matter principle, if you think about consciousness all the time, how can you lose consciousness? So this is the logic, and is beyond rational logic. So that's the thing I'm talking, So that's what the Shivnath Shastri thing. And if you read about the Bankim Chandra, we will not have time for Adalal Sen, but if you read about Bankim Chandra's discussion with Sri Ramakrishna, Bankim Chandra was that time one of the top intellectuals of Bengal. He wrote so many books. Our Indian, one of the national, is not the national anthem, but the other one which is regarded as national anthem. National song, yeah. Bande Mataram, right. That is written by Bankim Chandra. So he was a deputy magistrate, very educated, very intellectual, but Sri Ramakrishna, he was no match to Sri Ramakrishna. He was talking flippantly, and immediately he was brought down. That discussion is there with Adal Sen's house. So that's the Nandalal Bose. And after that, Sri Ramakrishna left their house, and that day was 28th of July, 1885. And that day was very eventful. If you read the Gospel, you will see that's a really eventful day. So from there, that's the inside of Nandalal Bosu's house. We talked about these paintings before. Yeah, from there, he went to Golap Ma's house. And Jogin Ma and Golap Ma, we should discuss a little bit before we entered their house. They are next to each other, they are neighbor, but not too far from Pashupati Bose's house. Jogin Ma was one of the foremost women disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And Golap Ma became disciple later. And Golap Ma, Jogin Ma, and Holy Mother, they are of the same ages. Golap Ma was about 5 years older, Jogin Ma is next, and then Holy Mother. And eventually, after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, they became constant companion of Holy Mother. Holy Mother used to call Jaya and Vijaya, who are companions of Divine Mother. So they are very stalwarts in the spiritual history of that time. So Jogin Ma was neighbor of Golap Ma, and Jogin Ma first visited. Jogin Ma had a tough life, and she belonged to a very wealthy, middle class family, but education, good education. Her father was a physician and also a professor at the Kolkata Medical College, Prasanna Kumar Mitra. But she had a very miserable life after early marriage. Her husband was drunkard and then squandered away all the money, and so very difficult time. So she came back and lived with father. And it was a very painful time. And then she met Sri Ramakrishna at Balaram Bose's house. Okay, and that was in 1882. Balaram Bose met Sri Ramakrishna 1st January 1882. So this happened sometime in 1882. Jogin Ma met Sri Ramakrishna there. And then slowly that life of misery got into a Godward turn, slowly. And Jogin Ma said, gradually I began to feel an attraction for the Master. Just the thought of visiting him would make my mind dance with joy. And so that's the Jogin Ma's beginning part. And I'll say a few other things about her. Jogin Ma's self-effort, Purushakara. Purushakara is also a masculine word, but Purushakara, our Swamiji said one time, is basically effort, self-effort. Somebody having Purushakara is a self-effort. Her self-effort was tremendous. She will not miss any day, whether she has fever or anything, in old age or anything, her spiritual practice. And she did Panchatapa, very, very hard austerity with Holy Mother after Sri Ramakrishna passed away. So Sri Ramakrishna decided to visit her home that time, what is the date again? 1885, 28 July, right? I keep missing that date. Yeah, 28 July 1885. So Jogin Ma met Sri Ramakrishna 3 years back, so she is a regular visitor. But Golap Ma is new. And what happened to Golap Ma, 28 July Sri Ramakrishna visited, and also that time Sri Ramakrishna agreed to visit Jogin Ma. What happened, Golap Ma was a widow, and she had one son and daughter. And the daughter was very beautiful, and she got married into one of the most aristocratic family of Calcutta that time, most aristocratic family. I mean, unbelievable that match could happen. Is again the grace of God or something happened, Shaurendranath Thakur. And Shaurendranath Thakur one day came to, I'll show you the picture. Yeah, on the right hand side. Shaurendranath Thakur, he had a Raja title from the government. And he came to Dakshineshwar one day, before this incident, and Sri Ramakrishna, he was very high stature person, but Sri Ramakrishna said, "Ami tomai Raja Taja bolte parbo na. I cannot call you Raja." Straight away dismissed him that way. But as a devotee, you are welcome, but not as a Raja. So to say something on the face, but Sri Ramakrishna did not say with plan or anything. It's just a spontaneous. The inside. The mother is telling that it's not for the place of your titles, it's the place of the devotees, and everybody comes here at the same level. Doesn't matter whether somebody has wealth or somebody is Raja or Maharaja. And he is amazingly, not only that was the castle they had, and he was not only a very wealthy person, but also he actually studied music, Western and Eastern music, so thoroughly that Oxford University gave him a PhD degree. And Oxford University doesn't give honorary PhD degree to people every day. So he got a PhD from Oxford University, I think early 1900. 40 years later, Rabindranath Tagore got an honorary degree from Oxford, 1940. Rabindranath Tagore comes from the same family, actually his nephew kind of thing. Devendranath Tagore and Shaurendranath Thakur, they are at the same level, at the same cousin kind of thing. So Rabindranath Tagore got the PhD in music, PhD from Oxford in 1940, and he got it around 1904 or something. And not only that, when US President Ulysses Grant, 1885, visited India, Calcutta, he visited their house. They had a banquet there. So that kind of level of person, US President visiting their castle, and had attended a banquet there. And he got married to Golap Ma's daughter. Golap Ma was a rather poor family and widowed. But somehow that match took place. But 20 July, 6 weeks before that, the daughter passed away. And daughter is an apple of her eye. And whenever Shaurendranath Thakur comes to visit Golap Ma's house, and oops, no, I'm going in the wrong direction, sorry. Yeah, on the right hand side. Yeah, that house is there. There's some construction taking place. I used to visit that house. There are security guards with armed security guards, liveried security guards aligned along the road with many horse-drawn carriages used to come there, and she used to feel very proud. Not only loved the daughter, but also very proud of that situation. And all of a sudden, the daughter died. And that happened about 1.5 months before that, and she was absolutely grief-stricken. Could not, almost become mad, because she had a son, but actually the daughter was very close to her. So she didn't know what to do. And so Jogin Ma was her neighbor. Jogin Ma took Golap Ma to Sri Ramakrishna. Actually, Chandi died in June of 1885. And yes, Jogin Ma in 1885 took her to Sri Ramakrishna. By that time, Jogin Ma has been going to Sri Ramakrishna for 3 years. And it was on June 13, 1885, right after the tragedy. and he became almost mad. That is Ram Datta's house, which is in Simla area, Swami Vivekananda's house. And that gave some solace. And then from then onwards, Golapma used to run like mad woman almost every day to Dakshineshwar, 9 kilometers from there, and come back to see Ramakrishna. And first time Golapma met Ramakrishna at the Dakshineshwar, instead of saying about the grief, Sri Ramakrishna said, "You are fortunate. God helps those who have no one to call their own." And slowly, Golapma feelings got assuaged, and Sri Ramakrishna decided to visit her house that day. So that's very eventful day, July 28, 1885. Balaram Bose's house, then from there, Pasupati Bose, Nandalal Bose, that debate, you can read that, and then from there came to Golapma's house. And so Golapma was waiting for Sri Ramakrishna is not coming, so she thought Sri Ramakrishna might have forgotten. And he said, if he forgets, I will never visit him. I may see him from a distance, but I'll never visit him. So she went to Pasupati Basu's house to see what's going on. And when she went there, Sri Ramakrishna came to their house from a different road, a different street. These are all very close by. And so when Golapma came back, she said, yes, he is here, he is sitting upstairs. And she was actually overwhelmed to see Sri Ramakrishna. And then that time, Sri Ramakrishna touched her, and she started laughing like a Gani. And said, I had come to the world to act in a play. Who is my daughter? Who is son? She felt that she had that vision of that no relation is not permanent. Had many daughters before lives, and you will have many daughters. She started talking like a Gani, and such was the power of the master. And then she was sitting with master all the time, and her sister was preparing food downstairs. This is second floor, and sister was preparing food downstairs. The sister came up to fetch Golapma to help her, but she could not come down. And later on, that night, explained to Sri Ramakrishna that's the same story as Martha and Mary in Gospel. And that one, Golapma's sister was saying, come down, sister, how can I manage things if you stay there? Can I do it all by myself? That is, Golapma's sister is shouting from downstairs. But the same thing happened in Jesus' life when Jesus visited Lazarus. Martha and Mary are the two sisters, and Mary was sitting by Jesus. And left alone to arrange the food to entertain Jesus, Martha complained to Jesus, came up and complained, Lord, please judge for yourself how wrong my sister is. She is sitting in your room and I'm doing all these things myself. This is Martha is speaking to Jesus. Jesus said, your sister indeed is blessed. She has developed the only thing needful in human life, love of God. So same thing happened here. And Sri Ramakrishna told Aim that there are different stages of bhakti. First stage is the holy company, and that awakens the Shraddha. Then comes, the first stage is holy company, then the Shraddha, then the Nishtha, single-minded devotion. Then comes Bhava, then comes Mahabhava, and then finally the attainment of God. And Golapma on the same day went through all these stages, attainment of the God, which is an achievement of many lifetimes of many people, many sadhakas, to go through all the steps. And she attained that state that night with Sri Ramakrishna there. So That's a very interesting way of looking at it, and that's what Aim also explained later a little bit there. So from Golapma's place, and she. That is the. I get confused here. Yeah. This is Jogi Ma. Right? Oh, I think this direction is. Yeah. There is a room there. Oh, Golapma. No, going in the wrong direction. That is house. Oh. Yeah, that is the room where Sri Ramakrishna was entertained. That room is there. We couldn't go in because there's some people live there. Only on special occasions they allow visit, or maybe if some Swami goes. That was the room Sri Ramakrishna was entertained, second floor. And from there, Sri Ramakrishna went to Jogin Ma's house, which is just a stone's throw from there. And we talked a little bit about Jogin Ma. And no, I don't know why we go in the wrong direction all the time.
Down is forward.
Forward? No. Down is forward, yeah, okay. No, it's going in the other.
Backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the house. Okay. Yeah, on the left-hand side is Joginma's father, who is a physician, and the right-hand side is Hiralal. There is an interesting story happened with Hiralal. So we're getting time. Yeah. What happened was, I think whether that happened that day or the day after, somewhere I've read it happened that day. And I read part of the story, but the story is this interesting. Hiralal didn't like Joginma mixing with sadhus and all those. So he heard about, Joginma has been going for 3 years there, but Sri Ramakrishna never visited that house. So that day he had the opportunity. So what happened, he hired a local ruffian, Manmatha. He was a wrestler and he was a goon in that area. Hiralal hired that person, Manmatha, to beat him up, beat Sri Ramakrishna up when he was on his way to Kashipur, way to Dakshineshwar. So Manmatha was hiding in a bush away from the locality, and then when the carriage will pass, he will pounce upon him and then teach him a lesson. And so when the carriage was passing by that bush, Sri Ramakrishna, from his divine eye, whatever, he knew that. He said, Monmoto, Kamon acho, how are you? And Monmoto got totally startled. First of all, he didn't know that Sri Ramakrishna knows him. He came and immediately fell on Sri Ramakrishna's feet. Say, I was going to commit a sin and you have saved me, Thakur. And Manmata's life changed that day. He got some vision, and then he started visiting Dakshineshwar from there. And the last few days of his last year or whatever is very dramatic. He had developed some kind of sore in his head, and that was incurable, and he died of that. And there are maggots there, and he used to sit there in Dakshineshwar, spend a day there, and then go back maybe. Then the maggots will jump onto the floor, and he will take those maggots and put it back because it is your food. I cannot deprive you of the food. He went to that level. And his life got changed in that. So that Hiralal and Manmata story was, I don't have a picture of Manmata. Just a few minutes. This is the Shiva temple they have. And these deities, Joginma used to worship Balaram and Sri Krishna, and she had vision, the two boys coming out from there and hugging her. That deity is still worshipped in that house, I understand from the writing. And on 20th of July, they have celebration. So if I'm in Calcutta that time, I'll try to visit. So those days, they open the house. That house is not there. There are something else, but I think the inside courtyard or whatever, some part is there. Those in that article is said that shrine is there, and the Shiva temple is there. Okay, few more minutes we have, so we'll stop after that. This is a very interesting place. You have in Gospel you will see a reference many times. This is the Metropolitan Institute, where this is called the Shambazar branch. It has two branches that time. And M, the chronicler of Gospel, taught there 6 years, 1880 to 1886. And his first visit to Sri Ramakrishna was February 1882. So he has been teaching there for 2 years that time. And he was around late 20s that time. He was a very educated person. He had a master's degree, and it's a lot of studying he did. So he was already a headmaster of that school. And he not only taught at the school, he also taught at other schools. And he's an ideal householder. Actually, yeah. But yeah, but his inside is all yogi. Outside, he does his job very perfectly, teaching, but inside he is a renunciate. He is a yogi. M. And from this school, that school is not there. Actually, instead of that school, there's a girls' college there, but that building is there, I understand. So we went there. So from that school, Rakhal Baburam Prasanna, Hari Prasanna. Prasanna is Trigunatitanandaji, yes, Prasanna is Trigunatitanandaji. 3 of them are students there. And there are other students also. Purna, they are householder, they are not monastic disciples eventually. Purna, Chotonaren, Narayan, Bankim, Kishori, Khiro, Tejendra, Dijo, Poltu, and Binod. You will see their references in Gospel many times. So they are all students there. And aim is to take them to Balaram Bose's house whenever Sri Ramakrishna was visiting them. So that's how they got to know Sri Ramakrishna more and more intimately. And there are a number of references of them in Gospel. And Sri Ramakrishna expressed one time that to visit that school to see if there are other worthwhile boys there. But I don't think he actually visited that inside the school. And Aim was called by other as the kidnapping teacher. He used to kidnap students and bring them to Sri Ramakrishna so that they become disciples, eventually became monastic disciples, some of them. And whenever Sri Ramakrishna was staying at Balaram Bose's house, Aim during the noon time, he used to go there. And Sri Ramakrishna said, "You don't have any school today?" Aim said, "No, I don't have any important work. This is a lunch break. I have come to you to see you." And in Gospel, there is an incident, November 15th, 1882. Aim met Sri Ramakrishna in February of 1882, 1 year after Balaram Bose. So Sri Ramakrishna was going to Wilson Circus, to see Wilson Circus with Rakhal and other devotees from Dakshineshwar in a horse-drawn carriage, and Aim wanted to go, so they stopped at that school and picked up Aim from there. He was, as I said, he was very successful as a teacher, very good teacher, but has the calmness of a yogi. Practiced inner sannyasa with indifferent, with properly discharging his duties and responsibility fully. So there's another incident associated with that. In 1886, Aim resigned from that job. The reason was he used to go to Kashipur, where Sri Ramakrishna was staying, and Vidyasagar, whose school was that, he didn't like it. He's going so many times. Although Vidyasagar met Sri Ramakrishna, but he didn't like him going there so frequently because Sri Ramakrishna was sick that time. He used to go there quite often. So one day he said something obliquely to Aim, and Aim immediately resigned that day and came and told Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna appreciated that. He said, Guru Ninda, if anybody is castigating your Guru, you immediately leave that place. So that is the place he left. But he joined other schools. His qualifications was spectacular qualification. In 1905, he gave up these jobs for other schools, and he actually opened his own school, Morton School, we have seen a part of that school. That is a very, very dilapidated condition. And from 1905 to 1932, since until he passed away, he was there at that Morton School. That's at a different place, close to his house. Lastly, this is the Metropolitan Institution, the other branch. Many people mistake it as the Ames School, but that's not the branch. That is near his house, whose original ancestral house. But he did not teach there. He taught at that Shambhajar branch. I also used to mistake that one, but then I read more about it that he used to be in that branch, which is very close to Balaram Bose's house. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll stop. This was the rented residence of Master Mahashai. AM had a rented residence close to his house in the Shampukur area, and that house is still there. On the first floor or the ground floor, Sri Ramakrishna came many times, and AM had differences with his joint family in his house in Jamapukur. So he came here and stayed, and he's also close to his school. But Sri Ramakrishna wanted him to return back to the joint family, and he said it will help you in your spiritual life because you share your responsibilities. So he eventually went there, but he lived there for some time. And Sri Ramakrishna visited that house, the first floor, the ground floor, a few times. And that's where I don't know whether he met Purno there or not, but he gave instructions to Purno there. Purno also came in 1885, came late. And that's in Divine Play, there is a story about 5 women devotees who came to Sri Ramakrishna, and they are talking and having a very pleasant discussion. And all of a sudden, the Pran Krishna Mukhopadhyay, who is a fat Brahmin in Gospel, his house is also close by. So he came to see, hearing that Sri Ramakrishna has come, he went. And that in those days, the custom of the ladies, they do not come in front of other gents people. They're perfectly comfortable with Sri Ramakrishna's, but not with other, So but there's no place to hide. So 3 of them hid underneath the cot, and 2 of them under, there's nice, very hilarious description in the Divine Play, under the window. And Pran Krishna Mukhopadhyay kept on talking with Sri Ramakrishna for 1 hour, and they were getting mosquito bite. And when they came out, they told those stories, told Sri Ramakrishna that we had to suffer, and Ramakrishna Thakur laughed. So that house is this, and I'll stop it. That is the Choto Noren. Choto Noren's house is also next to that, and he used to visit Sri Ramakrishna also, very close to that M's rented house. And this is the fat Brahmin, Pran Krishna Mukhopadhyay, and his house is also not too far. That house is still there, but is not owned by his family, but somebody else. Sri Ramakrishna visited that house. So with that, I stop, and went over a few minutes. What do we do? We do the closing prayer, then questions, or if you have any questions? We do closing, we do questions first, right?
Questions.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, I guess not. Any up there?
No questions. Okay, good. All right. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Was it about Golapma that you said, like in that night she had all the moods or stages of
Right.
where is that a description where for that, or
Actually, AIM has Sri Ramakrishna. I actually got it from that article, but I think it's probably there in that gospel, because AIM has recorded that. Sri Ramakrishna told AIM these are the 4 or 5 stages. 5 stages a devotee goes through.
right?
And that's the conjecture that Golapma reached that highest state that night in front of Sri Ramakrishna. Nobody
Okay.
said that, but it's just a conjecture that she reached that state, the final state.
I understand it's a conjecture, but where that comes from? Did Thakur say?
Yeah.
Or
Let me find out that reference. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna described to M the different stages of bhakti. How can a devotee attain such love? First, the company of holy men, that awakens Shraddha, faith in God. Then comes Nishtha, single minded devotion to the ideal. He performs only acts that please God. After Nishtha comes Bhakti, devotion to God. Then comes Bhava, next Mahabhava, then Prema, and last of all, attainment of God. The writer wrote, in this visit, Gopal Ma attained the Lord himself in Sri Ramakrishna, the final stage of Bhakti or Parabhakti.
Okay, who is the writer?
Is the Swami Chidakananda.
Okay.
But the other part was Sri Ramakrishna described to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have closing prayer. Oh, an announcement now? Okay. We have on March 26th, we have a very special lectures by a guest speaker whom most of you know, Probrajika Gita Prana from Ridgely Manor. The topic is embracing life, and she is a very good speaker. We have heard her many times here. And next Tuesday she will talk. Our topic is a scene from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Probrajika Gita Prana. So we'll have the closing prayer. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.